understanding made. Oh, I believe. Oh, it's already done. The blessing is yours. God's already used you for it. Come on, Zacardi. I believe that my God is a healer. Yes, He is. And I believe that I will survive. Oh, I believe that God is able. Oh, I believe. I know it is already done. The word tells us that if any two of us shall agree on anything on earth, that God will do it for us in heaven. And I know sometimes life has a way of knocking you down to the point where you can't even pray for yourself. But today I want to agree with you that it's getting ready to get better. And right now we are giving your problems an expiration date. And we're saying it's over. That you've been crying long enough. That you've been worried long enough. That you've been struggling long enough. And I believe that God's going to do it for you. I believe God's going to do it. Yes, He will. I believe. Oh, it's gonna get better for you. I believe God's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. Yes, He will. I know He will. I believe. Fire, take it up. Yes, He will. I believe. It's gonna get better. Ooh, it will. Oh, yeah. If nobody wants to help you, God will fix it. God will fix it. Yes, He will. If you just believe. Oh, it's got to get better. Talk to him, Sean. I know you've been crying at night, but I came by to let you know that it's gonna get better. To the single parents, go in the room and grab your children, put your arms around them and let them know it's gonna get better. If you trust in Him, hang on in there. God told me to tell you it's gonna get better. God's gonna do it. You can't handle it. You gotta give it to Jesus. Oh, won't He work it out? If you believe it, say that. I believe. Your money's gonna get better. Things are gonna work out for you good. Tell somebody. Oh, you gotta believe. That cancer will bow down. Your child will get saved. Encourage somebody now. Yes, I do believe. Yes, I do believe. You need to call somebody right now and tell them God's gonna do it. We've been made. If you don't remember anything else, I believe. Remember this. Your storm is over. I believe. Your rain is gone away. Clouds have moved. I believe that you'll make it through it. Oh, I believe. Ooh, it's already done. I'm excited about your future.
7 minutes past the hour here on 91.9 FM, WLJS Jacksonville. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another special episode of Late Night with Ed Moore III here on 91.9 FM, WLJS Jacksonville. We're just 2 weeks away from the final episode of Late Night with Ed Moore III. That will be our special We Will Always Love You, the Late Night with Ed Moore III farewell episode special, in which we will be honoring and paying homage to the life and legacy of the late Whitney Elizabeth Houston. It is going to be such a beautiful show, a show that we have been planning for quite a while here at the Late Night with Ed Moore III show. After almost 15 months and 3 seasons of production and almost 140 guests, on November 30th, the Late Night with Ed Moore III show will come to its conclusion. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, as I promised on the night that we made that announcement, that we still have a job here to do at the Late Night with Ed Moore III show, and we will continue to do that until the very end. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be discussing the fashion of sagging. You all are very familiar with it. It's something that you see on movies, on television screens, in your backyards, in your schools, in your hospitals, in the streets, just about everywhere you go, you notice someone sagging, you see someone sagging. And another thing I've noticed also in the field, working in this field of news and journalism, is that sagging has manifested itself so deeply in American culture and American fashion that it has created a divide between the younger people of this generation and the older people. I think people such as our parents and our grandparents, which is precisely why we decided to title this show The Fashion of Sagging, A Generational Divide. We're going to be sitting here tonight with 2 gentlemen who come from 2 totally different worlds. As you know, sagging, for the most part, everyone has a different reason for why they do it. Some sag because they think it's cool. Some sag just because they see other people doing it. And other people, believe it or not, actually sag because it serves a particular purpose in their life. That's what we're going to be figuring out tonight. I have 2 gentlemen here to help me do this. Please allow me to re-welcome. He was a guest here on one of the biggest shows in the Late Night with Ed Moore III show history. He was here on September 21st when we had our very special on men in America. It was called The Male Race, Their Struggles, Strides, and Desires to Improve. Please allow me to welcome Mr. Jaleel Atkins back to WLJS Studios. Hello, Jaleel. It's such a pleasure.
Good evening, and good evening, everybody listening.
It's such a pleasure to have you here, Jaleel. And like I said, me and Jaleel, it was such a phenomenal show that you were a part of that night, and it's such a pleasure to have you here back for hopefully what will be another phenomenal show. And please allow me to welcome a newcomer to the Late Night with Ed Moore III show. He is an up-and-coming member of the hip-hop community. As you all know, the hip-hop community has largely taken up the idea, largely manifested the fashion of sagging. And so with him being an up-and-coming member of the hip-hop community, I wanted to get his perspective on how the hip-hop industry views sagging and how the hip-hop industry has given that idea that sagging is okay to do, and whether or not he does in his own personal life. Please allow me to welcome, he is a 19-year-old college student from Birmingham, Alabama. Please allow me to welcome Mr. Isaiah Hill to WLJS Studios. Hello, Isaiah. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
What's going on, Ed? It's a blessing being here.
It's you know what, I always love bringing people from 2 different sides of the map or 2 different worlds and bring them together, because there's nothing like bringing people together from different areas, from different neighborhoods. As many of you all know, I am the black kid who grew up in a predominantly white school, and you know, I'm a suburban guy, and so when I'm able to meet people from other different areas of the world, other areas of the country, it makes me very humble to be able to do things like this. So, gentlemen, let us talk.
Let's talk.
Sagging. If you can, to start all of this off, what is sagging to you? You know, although you probably cannot put a clear-cut definition on it, when you think of sagging, what do you think of? Isaiah, I'm gonna go ahead and start with you.
Oh, when I think of sagging, I think of high fashion.
High fashion?
Yeah, I think of high fashion.
Is that all that you think of?
high fashion, and I would say people from the struggle.
People from the struggle.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Jaleel? When you think of sagging, maybe not necessarily a working definition per se, but what is sagging to you?
Sagging to me is, well, in my own lifestyle, it's more comfort. Now, I'm not gonna go out and sag in public, but in the comfort of my own home, my own dorm, my own privacy, I may sag where it's just like, it's just me. I don't worry about nobody, no other eyes, but me just being in the room, being comfortable. So that's how I define sagging.
Okay. Do you all see it as something that is acceptable? Do you think it is something that it is okay to do? Do you find it something that maybe it's not so bad as people try to make it out to be?
I don't think it's so bad. It's just opinion.
It's just an opinion?
I think so. It's just an opinion.
Why is it just an opinion?
Because we deal with different things in the world. Far as you may not like a person because he has on the blue shoes and they say, blue is gang related. It's an opinion. So it's a freedom of speech. So we have the right to exercise our voice and speak on what we feel, as long as we're not hurting an individual.
Freedom of speech. Do you agree with that aspect, Jaleel? Do you agree that Isaiah here says that it is a freedom of speech? Do you see sagging as a freedom of speech?
Isaiah, that was kind of, I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I see it as freedom of speech. It's freedom for you to be yourself, and that's what you're trying to say. But at the same time, that you have to respect not only yourself, but you have to respect others, and others are watching you. So at the same time, you got to be mindful of what you're putting out in public. You want everybody. I know there's times where people say, "Hey, he look up to an older person because they are a role model," and some people are like, "No, I'm not the role model." So even if you want to be a role model, or you don't want to be a role model, you're still gonna be a role model to somebody.
Isaiah, do you have anything you want to respond to that? That was a pretty heavy counteract that he had in regards to your freedom of speech remark.
I'm going to talk about the role modeling. Me, I grew up in a not so good like a neighborhood. It was bad. It was a bad neighborhood. So I looked up, it don't matter where you come from, you always looked up to a special person. I don't care if he was a lawyer, doctor, sold drugs, played basketball, you always looked up to a special person like around the community. Me, I looked up to my brother. And so he said, I seen him sag. So I wanted to be like him.
So you said you saw your brother sag?
Yeah, it's like the first person I seen sag was my brother.
Did he ever tell you why he sagged?
My brother, he used to sell drugs.
Your brother used to sell drugs?
Yeah, a long time ago. So that's why I seen that lifestyle. I was around that lifestyle all my life, so I seen sagging. So I thought it was acceptable, and I still think it's acceptable.
Has anyone ever tried to tell you that it wasn't acceptable?
Yeah, my mom, she tried to tell me all the time. But your mom only can tell you so much. You have to experience things. You have to go through things. You have to live your own life. But she tried to direct me all the time to the right direction. But I choose the direction.
What does your mother had to say about sagging, Jaleel?
Well, let me say this. Being born in the 90s, I was raised in a good area, and then I moved into this, urban neighborhood for a year or so. So
describe urban, because there are a lot of our listeners out there who may not really understand what the word urban means.
Well, there's two sides. I went to a school up in Marietta High School in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was dominantly an African American school, and this is my first time going to a black school, or black school in general. I usually went to a school filled with Caucasians, Americans, and I just go up there and I was like, oh, okay, I see how they act, I see how they behave, and their behavior to the black school, I'm not bashing on the black school or the African Americans, it was just a little bit out there. There was kids cussing, there was kids doing this and this, and I was in there for about a year. And sagging was the first thing I saw. So it was like, besides the cussing, and mindful, I was in 3rd grade when I was seeing all this. So seeing the cussing, seeing the sagging, seeing